All right, dudes, welcome back. So I left you last time with all of this getting installed up until this point. Today I'm going to be working on the steering and the braking components that all go onto this front beam. So a lot of these parts I've had for a really long time, like these rotors, some of these brake lines, some of these wheel seals. You saw those bearings that I put in the freezer. All of that I've had for a really long time, like a couple years. I think even the brake pads, I got these from AutoZone that have like a lifetime warranty, not knowing that I was going to end up getting new calipers, and these calipers came all with new pads too. Some of these other new ones you've seen in the last video, and the other ones I didn't really show, but I'll go over it now. Like these rubbers I got from Ethan. Thanks again, Ethan. Appreciate ya. These tie rods are also from Ethan. Some of these steering components from Ethan as well. The tie rods, I'm going to be replacing them with all brand new ones, and I have some extras. I'm not exactly sure which part numbers go to which end on which rod, but I'll figure that out. And I also got a new steering box. Don't mind that. Yep, a new steering box. I know, I should just use my original one, but I think I might as well just get a brand new one since everything's gonna get replaced here. So before I can even put on any of the brake stuff, I really need to put on the steering. That way these spindles are locked in place. I want to try and maybe restore these, take the paint off and then repaint it. Here we have the driver's side inner on the vise here. And then now I should be able to take off this tie rod with a 14, which is interesting because right here you can see is a flat side and this side here is still rounded, but I can still fit a 14 in it, just like that. That's off. Now I'm gonna work on the outer side. The driver outer is a little different in the way that it's clamped down. So that will loosen up this clamp. And then I think it's still also a 14, and this is actually already kind of loose. Oh shoot, I'm spinning it the wrong way. This is the one that's reverse thread, so I need to be going righty loosey. Oops. There we have it. Just make sure on the driver outer it's reverse thread. Passenger inner is pretty much identical to the driver inner, except I think this one is the reverse thread. So reverse thread on the passenger inner and reverse thread on the driver outer. And then last but not least is the passenger outer, and this is normal thread, so righty-tighty, lefty-loosey. Meanwhile, look at he's over here working on his stuff. Yeah, that's my brother with the 74 Gia. And right now he's working on narrowing his beam as well. So he's working here in the backyard while I do this. All right, we have both tie rods, super smooth, way smoother than I had expected, because instead of using a flap disc like I first started with, I was using this little contraption thing, and it's nice because it has like this tensioner thingy here, so it really wraps around the tube. So yeah, these are ready to paint pretty much. I'm gonna get that set up, paint these, and then install the new tie rod ends. Okay, I have tie rods standing on this screw that I just put on this. Whoa, almost hit me in the face. So just kind of have it standing like that and just paint away. All right, that's just one coat, but you get the point. These little components for the steering box, I think I'm gonna paint them too. There's a rubber bushing in here that's an actual VW part, and I don't know if that's replaceable. So anybody knows, just leave a comment. Otherwise, I'm just gonna mask it off and just paint it. Okay, these are now painted. So while those hang and dry, I'm gonna work through my tie rod ends, which I have laid out here. So the ones that came off of the tie rods right now, I labeled them all with the driver side outer, driver inner, passenger outer. And what I did note here are the driver outer and the passenger inner are both reversed, while the driver inner and passenger outer are just regular thread. So I have all these other tie rod ends here, and I know I have a whole bunch extra because, like I mentioned before, I did buy a lot of this stuff like several years ago, and unfortunately a couple of them got left out in the rain and just destroyed the boxes, but I did keep them in their original packaging and everything, so I have all that. And I did notice that because I bought them several years ago, I then started looking at the part numbers and realized I got the wrong one on one of them. I forget, so I bought another one. So that's why I have 5 OCAP boxes. And then I have this and this that I got from Russ at Old Speed when I picked up the spindles. So I separated them here. So there's several different part numbers here that gets kind of confusing. So there are the 415811, 415818, another 811, and then an 812. It's kind of weird. I think this is the way it goes. The 811s go to the driver outer and the passenger inner because they are the reverse thread. And I've verified here, actually taking a look at the threads, that they are reversed. I looked at the box inside here. That's also reversed, so that should be good. The 818 is a regular thread that goes to the driver inner, and then the 812 is also a regular thread going to the passenger outer. I don't know if I'm going to be using the ones that Russ gave me. I know they're in much better shape, and some of this stuff here, like it did get rained on, but they still look okay, and I'm pretty sure this is going to be okay here. Let's see, they don't look too bad. This one here is really rusty now, but that's another 818 that I have right here. So I'll probably use this one. So I will have an extra 811, an extra 812, and an extra 818. The driver inner is actually a special tie rod end, which apparently is like super hard to find these days. I don't know if it's like specific to 67s or type 3s or something, but you can see here this actually has like an angle. I think it's because of how close this side is to the steering box, where this needs to kind of clock that way or something like that. I don't know, but the new ones that I got here don't have that. Actually, no, yeah, it doesn't really have that angle, but I'm thinking because I'm lowering this a little bit, it may not even really matter too much. But I think I'll still just keep these in case I need to replace them. So I'm gonna go with the OCAP ones just so I have all the same brand, and then these two will just be like extras, I guess. After looking at all my tie rod ends, and this one in particular that got left in the rain, it did rust a lot. So I don't want that to happen to these ones once they're installed onto the car. So I masked them off, the parts that I don't want to get painted, and I'm just gonna paint pretty much the heads of them. I masked that off, I masked this off and this nut, and then I put the part number here just to make sure I don't lose track of them. So I'm gonna paint all of these and then just wait for everything else to dry. So since I'm painting a whole bunch of stuff, I'm waiting for everything to dry up. And while I'm waiting, I might as well paint my rotors as well. So I've used some brake clean along this entire surface here and masked everything off. Now I'm going to use my file to get a clean line along the side so that I can paint that too. I'm going to paint the back and then the front. Okay, it's the next day and I've let the paint cure on all of this. So the rotors are nice and dry. I took the paint off, the tape off of them, and these tie rod ends as well. They're all nice and dry. So I'm gonna put these on using some anti-seize on the threads here before throwing them in. All right, tie rod ends are installed onto the tie rods. So steering box, I already installed this pitman arm onto the bottom. I think it actually needs to be installed onto the steering box before I put this in. Once the steering box is installed onto the beam, there's not really much room down here to install this. So it's always good to have the pitman arm already on there. This clamp here is super important to note the orientation that it gets installed, because there's a 34 and a 31. Because this is going onto a squareback beam, the arrow for the 31 side needs to be facing up so that it sits onto this notched area here. Here where it says 34, I think that's for a type 34, the Karmann Ghia type 3. If this was a Ghia type 3, then I believe the notch would be on this side, so you'd have to install it in this orientation, but it goes just like this. So I've gotten this pretty much just hand tight, and you can see here how difficult it would be to put this pitman arm onto the steering box when it's installed because of the amount of space you have here. So make sure that's on there, and then the box goes in. There's this bolt here that I wanted to replace originally, but it actually shows a VW stamp on there, which is kind of interesting, but that goes here. And also looking at my brother's Ghia, here also has a VW stamped onto his steering clamp thing. So yeah, I won't be replacing this. I'll just clean it up and reuse it. Okay, tie rods are almost ready to be installed. But before we do that, you want to make sure the steering box is set as close to the middle as possible. So what I did is I turned this all the way to one side, and I counted how many times this rotates until it reaches to the very end. So it's just about 3 1/4 turns. So 3 1/4 divided by 2 is a little bit over 1 1/2 turns, so like 1.6 turns or something. And I kind of just eyeballed it, so I think this would be right around where it should be sitting when it's idle. So now that I have that set, these tie rods are ready to be installed there and here. Or is it the other way? I don't know. I have to look at some pictures, but yeah, now these caps are ready to come off so that I can actually put them on. Okay, big fail. So I have the tie rods installed, and only then I realized that these tie rod ends actually were the incorrect ones. I replaced this one and this one with the 2 that Russ gave me, because for sure those fit. So far, only this O-cap part actually fits onto the pitman arm, and this one here, you can see it's way too skinny because this hole is a little bit bigger, and if I push it in all the way, see how it doesn't really fit right. This one I replaced because this one here was way too skinny, so the one from Russ works. This one here I also replaced because this one was also too skinny. Yeah, fail. Now I just have to figure out how I'm gonna get another one of these ones, because with the 3 extras that I have, they are for the wrong spot. So I think I'm probably gonna hit up Russ to see if I can get the right one. For now, I'll just kind of mock it up. Or maybe I could even put the stock one back in, just so I can kind of set the alignment. I could just keep going, but yeah, I'll need to sort that out later. I think I'm gonna consider the steering done for now, at least what I can do with it. I can't really do much of the alignment until I get this sorted out. I kind of did like an eyeball alignment here just to kind of get it close, but again, I can't really do it exactly the way it should be because that's gonna be off. Moving on over to the braking stuff. I have the rotor here and this torch. I'm gonna heat up this area so it kind of expands this metal, and then I'm gonna grab the bearing race, put a bit of grease on the OD of the race, and then I'll press it in with this socket here, and the same thing on the back with this. So you just hammer that in as far down as you can until that race sits inside there. Same thing with the back. That's nice and tight. So this side is done. There is a wheel seal that you need to put on the inside of the rotor. Part number 357501641. And that one will sit right back here. Actually, the actual bearing needs to go in first, and then this. The bearing, inner wheel bearing is 311405625. Usually, you're supposed to pack this in with grease, but I'm not gonna do that right now. I'm just gonna toss it in and then put this wheel seal in. I think I can just take this off again, but I'm just test fitting for now. So that's good, just like that. And then the outer bearing part number is 311405643, I think. That goes here. I don't think I can install these rotors on today because I realized that I think this may be the wrong bearing, because this actually doesn't even fit here. It's just a tiny bit too small. Whoa. Compared to the one that came out of the car. The bearing is still in there. It actually goes all the way in like that. So that's how it's supposed to look like, but I can't get this to fit there, so I can't even install my brakes today. Okay, even bigger fail. So everything that I've been installing yesterday and today all needed to come off because I need to replace a number of things. So that tie rod needs to get replaced, and I need to get new wheel bearings as well. So I'm just gonna bring all of this over back to Russ and see what parts he has, because I can't do anything without those bearings or the tie rods. So I'm gonna bring both spindles, all the tie rods, the tie rod ends, and even the steering box, just to make sure I'm getting the correct tie rod end here. So taking a pause today. I'll probably work on this again this coming week, and hopefully I should get it done in the next few days or so.